thinking about filling the need for a year-round, daily drivable sports car, yes, if you're like me, you're probably thinking, logically of course, well, an R34 GTR fits the criteria perfectly fine. Aside from the fact that it's a $250,000 car, it has 4 seats, it's turbocharged, it's all-wheel drive. But if that's not your thing, and you want to avoid maintenance and overnight parts from Japan, the answer is generally always 911. That's the default. It's up to all the others to make their case against it. But with every passing year, they get a little bit bigger, a little bit smoother, and a little less rough around the edges. So of course, I had to find out for myself if the 992 still holds the top spot. So the 992 generation, not as big of a leap as it was from the 997 to the 991, of course, and we see that in the wheelbase. The 991 had a little bit longer of wheelbase than the 997, and this 992 has the same wheelbase as the 991. So, other than that, they've changed kind of the model lineup, even though you can get every 911 that you'd ever expect. You've got your standard Carrera, you've got your S, you've got your Targas, you've got your 4S, and then of course you have the turbos and the GT3s. Wow. Wow! Oh, the 6500 red line is unbelievable. The resonance of the engine completely changes. The whole character changes up top. It's like the cams, you can still feel, you can still hear the mechanics of the engine going on. It does still feel alive. My anxiety is gone. I was worried for a split second that the 992 would have lost and incrementally become more numb than the 991. And the one I'm driving today is a GTS4. Technically speaking, it's a Carrera GTS4. But when I was a kid, when the 996 was new and before the 997 came out, the Carrera name, just saying Carrera, always meant like that was the lowest tier model. I wanted nothing to do, even as a 13-year-old boy, to do with a Carrera. That was just, oh, you're driving a Carrera. And even now, more so, the 996 Carrera is not a desirable vehicle. But here in 2023, things have changed. And even a base Carrera, of course, as you guys all know, receives the twin-turbo 3-liter engine. Same engine that's in this, of course, though. This has got bigger turbos. 473 horsepower here, and even the base Carrera has adequate power, fully adequate power for a daily. Still a little bit of turbo lag. Now, I would imagine that in the Carrera S, that's dialed back even more. Now, I'd imagine the turbo, you get a little bit more feedback audibly from the turbos than here. You do not hear the turbos. You do feel them though, absolutely, especially at the lower RPMs. Of course, 6-piston brakes up front, huge brakes, just massive brakes pulled straight from the turbo. This one has Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires on it, not spec'd, not the tires that originally came with. That was a summer tire, a Continental of some kind. So here it's spec'd with the 255 up front and a 315 in the rear. We have everything turbo. Not quite, but almost everything turbo, just minus, well, 100 horsepower and 133 pound-feet of torque. It's not nothing. And while here the spool above 3,500 is lightning quick and torquey enough to occasionally inspire short shifting, the push on the other side of that spool would more accurately be described as a shove in the turbo. More importantly though is where that shove comes from. A combination of the $33,000 US that's no longer in your glove box, and of course an extra 700 cc of displacement. The GTS also hides a modified variant of the turbo's suspension underneath, equipped with Porsche's active dampers as standard here. You can uncheck that box at checkout, I suspect because although the GTS has incredible chassis control in a performance setting, hiding a bit of witchcraft to keep that body roll under control, it's stiff most of the time. I'd suggest saving the carbon bucket seats for your GT3. I believe it's been spec'd with PASM. Oh, there's some turbo noises. All right. Okay. Let me capture that one more time for you. There was some blow off there. Oh yeah. This is a 911 turbo. It's not leaps and bounds different in feel to the 991, but it's just everything's dialed to 10. Wow! So sharp, so incredibly sharp. God, the brake pedal's firm, incredibly firm. This has got heavy steering, but it doesn't feel artificially heavy like a lot of other lesser performance-oriented vehicles do. Okay, you guys need, I think a prerequisite to buying a 911 Turbo. Turbo S is a different story, but a 911 Turbo would be to write a handwritten letter to Porsche explaining why the GTS is not enough. It is so fast. Wow. Does not stop pulling. Of course, PDK is flawless here. It's an 8-speed PDK now, not a 7-speed. I mean, on the street here, powering out of a corner, it just wants to rotate even more. It would be, you know, my one of my dreams in life is to get a 911 on track and get to the point where I'm fluid and incredibly competent on hucking around a 911 properly and distributing the weight properly on a track, because it is a completely different animal to almost any other sports car, and I still would call this a sports car. I would still even call a 911 Turbo a sports car, even though it does supercar things. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, this competes, yeah, with the Vantage, to a certain extent with the R35 GTR. Yeah, it's competitive on the pricing front, but the GTR errs on the side of performance. The interior is just not up to the 911's fit and finish, and of course, it's old. In 2008, when the R35 was launched, this was a brand new 911 Turbo. Yeah, that's a 997. Plus, it would be embarrassing to put it on a scale next to the GTS4. The Mercedes-AMG GT. Okay, no rear seats, no all-wheel drive, and of course shares an engine with the Aston Martin Vantage. Another similarly priced coupe, but again, no all-wheel drive and no rear seats. The Audi R8, of course, is more striking and potent, but again, no rear seats. And on the luxury front, the Continental GT is a staple in the game, all-wheel drive and rear seats, although costs about $100,000 more. And if we go the other way, coming in around $62,000 less than the GTS4, the Lexus LC500. Ah, yes, an amazing 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 to listen to. Great body to look at, but no all-wheel drive, and you thought the GTR was heavy. Lastly, if we're really diving deep, my eyes would go to the BMW M8 Competition Coupe. All-wheel drive, 4 seats, and over 600 horsepower. I've driven one, it's an exceptional vehicle. The 911's just more fun. It's a driver's car. That is a GT car. Of course, what I'm driving today is not a GT3. Far from it, actually. And the soundtrack is just a dead giveaway. It's simply a budget 911 Turbo. I love that. It still has the appeal, the sports car enthusiast appeal, without the snobbiness, and it just has most of what you need in terms of storage space. But compared to my fantasy of daily driving an R34 GTR all year round, snow, sleet, rain, sunshine, the 911 does most of that, if this had a manual especially, does most of that with less headaches. But as I said in a previous video, there are some kinds of people that enjoy chasing those headaches. The steering's nice and heavy. I'm gonna guess this one has not been spec'd with the optional extra boost at low speeds for the power steering that Porsche offers. I don't think this one's been spec'd like that. Great spec on the interior though, black with red seat belts that match my hoodie, and the red stitching, of course. Yeah, buttons have moved around here. So instead of having your suspension settings, your suspension button, your exhaust button, down here on the center console here, it's moved up to the top. It's a little bit closer to where your hands are on the steering wheel, a little bit easier to touch, much bigger screen here. I'm not gonna get into the nav and everything. I don't have enough time today. But as far as ergonomics, 911s don't change. 911s don't change ergonomically speaking. Maybe from air-cooled to 996 there was a bit of a jump, but from 996 to here, it's largely a very similar feel in terms of where everything is. Although, a little bit of a flaw here. I'm gonna put a POV cam so you guys can see this. On the left side, the steering wheel blocks the time and the temperature, not a big deal. And on the right side though, it blocks the fuel gauge and the temperature gauge, the coolant temp. So that's a little bit of an issue perhaps.
Hey, my name is Brandon and I'm the owner of this 992 GTS4. Before this, I also have a Taycan 4S. That was my first Porsche car. Overall, of course, I'm very impressed by it. The handling, such a great everyday car. I mean, with the family, with the kids, it's just such a perfect car. It's quiet. Obviously, in the bottom of my heart, I always wanted a 911. That was the ultimate goal. So I did put an order for one, and you know, I never looked back. So you know, it's obviously not as practical. It doesn't have 4 doors, but I'm not disappointed at all, needless to say. Okay, so I saw this online and I thought I had to get it. So I had it discreetly hidden in the spoiler, so you can only see it when the spoiler is extended like this. People tend to like it. You know, I get tags and, you know, mentions and pictures of this, just this shot particularly.
And I feel like you can get away with it too because you've owned an EV.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that too. And so yeah, I guess I'm back into the combustion team. Yes, and so, I'm good to be back. Oh, yeah. I do drive it less in winters, but I do have winters for these, and I do drive them whenever I can. Like if it's a nicer day, even sometimes not as nice days, I feel like taking this car out. Even in winter, I should have it insured all year round, and I definitely drive it because, again, that is one of the reasons I got the GTS4. I was thinking about the Lotus Evora at one time. These last ones that they make, they are very nice. They're very unique, exotic looking. It's definitely way less of them than like you would see a 911. For the new car that they have priced are very really close to a 911, but the resale wise is not as close. And I do hear like a little bit more issues with, you know, British cars. You know, they don't tend to last as long. So that's how I came to this. Yeah, there's not a whole lot on the list that seats 4 people and fun to drive. So it's a hard question and answer. Yeah.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. In conclusion, I would love to drive a naturally aspirated 992, aka a GT3. That to me just kind of, by turbocharging all the engines, by placing the 3-liter in every car, turboing every single 911, they increase the gap to the GT3 even more, which makes, in turn, the GT3 even more special. Thank you guys so much for watching 992 GTS4. Hit me up on Instagram at Roads Untraveled. We'll be driving some fun stuff coming up. We'll see you guys soon.